Hi to everyone. I'm Sarah Kudra. I'm one of the co-hosts, co-chairs of the BSA Housing Committee, along with David. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm David Asher. I'm an affordable housing architect with Davis Square Architects, one of the co-chairs of the Housing Committee. And we're here today with the Dorchester Design Collaborative.
Yeah. And we'll hand it to them for introductions in just a moment. As we get started here, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody for joining us for the first event of 2024. So the Housing Committee is planning to do monthly activities for the rest of the year. In March, we are going to have an in-person networking event. I don't have the date in front of me. I don't know if David, you can find that. We'll post that into the chat. Do you have the date? Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me. We'll put it in the chat.
We'll put it in the chat. That's the best way to make sure we're not misphrasing. And we're also looking for the rest of the year to continue the series of conversations that we'll be starting today to really tackle the housing crisis. I think we've gone about this in a handful of different ways through the BSA and over the years with the Housing Committee. And we all know this is a really pressing issue in our city and certainly in our country, globally as well, and want to make sure we bring to light a lot of the great innovations and approaches that folks are doing locally, and think that about this in a larger context of housing, and hopefully have a great conversation about that. So I see a few more folks we'll let join the room, and then we'll turn this over now to the Dorchester Design Collaborative.
Hello, thank you, Boston Society of Architecture, for this opportunity to present to you about our firm and what we do. My name is Jennifer Ha, co-founder of Dorchester Design Collaborative. A little bit about me: I am from Boston, and I got my BArch in Syracuse University. My husband and I started our own architecture firm, Hue Architecture, in Dorchester in 2016.
I'm Milo Stella, also co-founder of Dorchester Design Collaborative. I own Star Contracting Company. I'm a small residential general contractor doing custom single family and small multifamily projects in the Boston area. Yeah, I'll turn it over to Matt.
Matt Mueller. I'm from Alabama. I went to school in Auburn and attended the Rural Studio, if anybody's familiar. Jen and I actually met in China, where we lived for 6 years, and we had a small firm there. And then when we came back to Boston, worked for her dad's cabinet company for a while and started our own architecture firm. So we've had quite a journey.
Great, so let's do the next slide. So I'm an architect and Milo's a contractor. We are both passionate about high quality, passive house, energy efficient homes. And we both want more of those homes in our community. And that's why we teamed up to form this development company so that we can realize our vision. A few things about DDC is that we're a minority women-owned company. We are community-based design, build, development company. We focus on neighborhood scale opportunities in and around Dorchester, Boston, with a particular focus on passive house and zero energy homes.
Here are some project samples of that my company has worked on. We have a net zero accessory dwelling unit in Newton that was maybe one of only a handful of accessory dwelling units done through Newton's ADU zoning bylaw. So this was an as-of-right project that was, basically new construction and an addition off a single-family house. We did that all electric, continuous exterior insulation, solar on the roof, kind of passive house inspired, but not quite there. We also have a project called the Norwell Townhomes, and this was actually my first multifamily project, and also an affordable home ownership project. And this was 4 two-family townhomes So like a fee simple model, passive house aligned. I think all the units got between a 40 and a 44 HERS score, which was pretty good. And then on the right, another custom single family home that we built in Newton, that has FIAS certification pending. We're actually working on having that certified through FIAS's prescriptive path program. And again, it's all electric. And that has a HERS score of -13.
I think one thing to add is what's interesting about Milo's company is that his father formed the company, and it wasn't at first you weren't passive house certified before, and your FIAS interest actually is a new direction for the company.
Yeah, so I took over the company in 2020, and we were renovations and additions contractor before then. But I got my passive house certified builder cert in 2019, and when I took over the company, I knew that was going to be the focus going forward.
Let's just do these quick.
Yeah.
So these are just a few of our projects. The one on the left is a multifamily we're currently building on Bowden Street in Dorchester. The middle project is actually our office that we're in now. It's a passive house aligned mixed use with 2 residential and 1 office. And then the one on the right is a multifamily townhouse project that is also around the corner. And I'm also I received my passive house certification in 2019 as well. Just to throw that in there.
Yeah, I want to add that so all these projects are actually in Dorchester, but only the middle one is passive house aligned, and that's because the other 2 projects were for other clients where we're not the developer. So the middle project is kind of like the starting point of when we started doing development, and that's where we GC'd, we designed and GC'd this project as well as developed this project. So we got financing for the construction, and that's actually where we're at right now. On the first floor is the office of Hugh Architecture, Star Contracting, and BDC. And then the second and third floor are 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartments that are rental units, and that's what's kind of financing or paying the loan right now. And but this is where office is basically an example of the type of buildings that we want to see more in our neighborhood. So here I just wanted to give a brief key points about this is what we submitted for Welcome Home Boston, the design submission, and this is the map of where our lots are. The blue here, that's where our project is. You can see enlarged here in red the 3 lots that we have chose for the bid, and the orange is our office that we're in right now. So you can see we're a 5-minute walk. And one of the biggest reasons why I participated in the Welcome Home Boston program is because of the proximity it is to us. So it's quite personal. And then here is just an aerial view. The proposed building maintained the scale, density, and rhythm of the neighborhood. We're proposing 3 separate buildings, 4 units each, totaling 12 units. So quickly about the design. We gave great consideration to the site design. So with bike parking on either side, open green spaces, and as well as a sustainable, design with like pavers and other material, and then the car parking as well, and EV chargers. Let's go next. And so our building form takes inspiration from the adjacent gabled multifamily neighbor. The offset gable roof allows for optimum solar exposure. And on the ground floor, we designed a large covered porch that is also ADA accessible entryway for all residents.
I think like one of the main starting points for us was trying to, start with the premise that, we should have PV solar on the project from the start, understanding that we're forming a condo association of, deed restricted, affordable units with, ostensibly relatively low income buyers and owners, and monthly expenses and carrying costs, can be a big burden. And electricity is not cheap, even in an efficient building. So, we really try to figure out how much solar do we really need to, make the buildings net zero, and let's figure out a way to, build them into the budget and install them up front. We have since learned that underwriting solar for condo associations is pretty tricky to do, particularly given the affordable nature. It's just tough to do in a way that benefits both the developer and the occupants of the building. If you did community solar or something, it doesn't, the owners of those units don't necessarily get the solar credits, even though it's a good thing for just the grid. So we are in conversation with a company called Resonant Energy. They're a B Corp solar company that does nonprofit, institutional, and affordable housing solar development. And they're working with MOH to get a grant from the Mass Clean Energy Center to basically design a roadmap for how to make this work for affordable home ownership. And we're optimistic that they will get that grant. And by the time we're building these projects, we'll have a clear roadmap to getting solar, not just on our project, but potentially on all of the Welcome Home Boston projects.
So as we said, me and Milo are both Passive House certified. So for those who aren't familiar, we'll just talk through what that means. So we're basically following a set of few principles that allows the building to be super energy efficient and uses little energy as possible. So basically we're beefing up the envelope to have higher R values on the roof and the walls. We're using triple pane, high efficiency, often European windows. We're doing a ERV system that allows for fresh air to come in, but exchanges the heat with the incoming air and the outgoing air. So it's super efficient. And then we're trying to minimize the mechanical and the lighting as much as possible to really reduce those energy usage. And in our project, we're trying to make up that energy usage with the solar panels, as Milo was just talking about.
So this is kind of the unit breakout that we initially proposed. The RFP guidelines we're calling for a minimum of 50% of units at 80% AMI affordability, and then the other 50% could be up to 100% AMI. We initially tried to go in and offer a little bit steeper affordability than like the RFP minimums. And really, this kind of just proved to be a challenge in a couple ways, mostly because the building footprint that we came up with, we needed to get 4 units in each building, but a little bit of a challenging plate. So where we've actually landed is doing 50% of units at 80% AMI, 50% at 100, and instead of having 6 1-bedroom units, we've changed the second floor plate to be a 2-bedroom and a studio unit. And then the city also had us eliminate the 4-bedroom units. And so we just have 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and studios now. And part of that was kind of maximizing the total potential sales, which all have a set price based on the affordability level. And yeah, so kind of it was a little bit of a game of like value optimizing the unit count and affordability layers, and also trying to make sure that we were delivering units that people were going to want to buy and want to live in, that just makes sense.
Go back 1 second. Another thing about this, just we wanted to optimize the floor plan. You see we only have 1 set of stairs in each unit, so allowing a lot more space for actual units. And I think maybe a happy accident is the kind of simplistic design works well for passive house and also panelization. So we're looking into getting some offsite prefab panels made. And hoping that will cut our costs. So that's something we can get into if anybody has questions about that later. So another thing that's worth talking about is a big part of working with the city and working with MOH is their equity and inclusion guidelines. And this is definitely an important part of the process. And it's something that for me, there's a learning curve because you're really trying hard to find people in the neighborhood and find underrepresented people to work with you. And so there's a whole process behind that I personally have never been involved with. And I think Milo's worked on that a little bit with his previous affordable housing project, but there's definitely a learning curve to it. And if anybody's interested in getting into working with MOH, this is something that's important to know about. Marketing and outreach. So we're builders and architects, designers, and we don't have the marketing and outreach background, but it's also super important because we want to get the word out, especially locally to people around us in the neighborhood that, we don't have any influence on who gets chosen for these, but because it's a lottery, but we want to inform and educate people in this neighborhood about this option to apply for this and how to prepare themselves financially to really be successful if they do apply for it. So part of our team is a marketing outreach specialist, is a local real estate broker who knows the neighborhood, who knows the demographics, and who's really going to help us try to reach out to people locally to get them in these houses. Yeah, and this is just a quick overview of our development team. A lot of these people are local in the neighborhood. They're all people we've worked with before, people we trust, and they're either local or they share our passion for sustainability or both. So it's just super important to have competent people on your team that can fill in the gaps where you have weaknesses.
Okay, so this is the end of our presentation. Yeah, forming DDC, we came together last year, 2024. What year is it? 2023. 2023, and actually we formed because Welcome Home Boston came out in, I think, January, February last year, and that's actually the same time as when we formed. So we formed because of Welcome Home Boston opportunity. And it was, it's a program that's very unprecedented because they allow new green developers like us who have, very minimal experience in doing development to apply to be a developer for Boston lots. And so, this has been a really big learning curve, but it has been fun, challenging, fun, and fulfilling. And I think we are looking forward for our next project because we've been doing very well right now with this Norwell lots, and we hope maybe we will start building this year. We're actually in the zoning board of appeals process, getting the refusal letter, and then the timeline is that we will start construction this year. If there's a delay, then next year, like early next year. And then after that, maybe before then, Welcome Home Phase 3 maybe come out. Maybe we would submit another bid. we, you know, this is something that we really enjoy doing, and we hope to keep doing this.
Yeah, and I think kind of just to like how this like, you know, this kind of venture even came to be. You know, I think we're both of our firms are not in their infancy, but you know, just kind of starting on our arc of growth and you know, deep interest in you know, passive house and low energy building, and you know, located in the same area. So coming together was really like a natural fit for us, and really enabled us to increase our bandwidth, you know, beyond what, you know, just one of our individual firms could do, and kind of cut out the middleman of like, you know, chasing clients. You know, both for Jen and Matt, you know, trying to, you know, find the developer clients whose values align with theirs, and, you know, compete for those, you know, those design projects. And then for myself, you know, try and compete with, you know, builders who are not interested in building passive house, and not interested in you know, paying the price for what they view as like a premium product, or you know, something that's kind of superfluous. So you know, it was really a great opportunity for us to like put our heads together, you know, get our feet wet, and have control over the decisions that get made, and you know, be able to make decisions that align with our values, and you know, that hopefully will end up benefiting us and our businesses going forward.
Yeah, I think you know, we're willing to take questions, and we wanted to kind of keep it short and sweet. So we have a discussion afterward if anybody has any questions for us.
Thank you. Yeah, and certainly if folks have questions, you can either come right off mute, or if you want to raise your hand or put a question in the chat, we'll take a look at those. So I'll get us kind of started, get the wheels turning here, because I would love to have a conversation. I mean, part of what was really interesting about your proposal to welcome home is this balance of performance and affordability. And so I would love to hear a little bit more from you, maybe specifically to that side of it. And I know, Matt, you kind of alluded to that in the panelization. It's obviously a very challenging building environment right now for cost of materials, and you're trying to make the profit margin work as a business model. So, you know, with that kind of as an impetus, I'd love to hear your take on how that has been going.
Yeah, I can start and you can chime in, Milo. So I think another thing that makes us and Milo align is I think we both feel comfortable doing like standard passive house, and with each project we take on, we want to try to challenge ourselves a little bit more. So we were both interested in panelization, and we haven't, neither one of us have really done it before, although I've had some projects in the past that have dealt with some kind of prefab stuff with my rural studio days, and even when I worked in China. So I have some experience with that, but not here and not in this way, and definitely not with passive house. So it's a good fit in terms of our ambition, in terms of our personal development. And also it's just, you know, passive house, generally you want to have simple lines. You don't want to have anything too fancy in terms of the volumetric design. And that fits very well with the panelization. And so we're actually in the process right now of talking to 2 or 3 different panelization companies and working through those details with them. And it's super interesting. And I think it's going to bear fruit when it comes to the budget as well, because from what we've talked about, they can build those and have them erected within a couple of weeks on site. So that really cuts down on-site labor. It cuts down a lot of mistakes potentially. It really, if it's built in factory, you know, the quality control is there, especially with air sealing and those sort of things that are important for passive house. So there's a lot of overlap in those 2 things, and that I think I look forward to exploiting
Yeah, I think like particularly pertaining to the panelization, there's definitely not like a first cost savings there. Like it is cheaper to stick build, you know, almost all the time in our area, mostly because you know, by and large, like this scale of project, you know, it's just light wood frame and there's a lot of, you know, cheap labor out there, you know, quite honestly, you know, in the pool of, you know, wood framing subcontractors out there. So you know, you can't really compete with that in terms of like first cost on the construction front. But what's I think unique about our team is that, you know, we can step back and look at all of the other factors around, you know, time to construct, around, you know, predictability of performance and predictability of cost, you know, because we signed that contract up front and, you know, 6 months later, when those panels show up, we're not getting a change order, you know, saying, oh, well, you know, sorry, when I quoted that project 6 months ago, you know, things changed. And the schedule advantage is potentially huge, especially when you look at, you know, the carrying cost of a construction loan right now. So, you know, if we shave a month off the project, you know, on the back end, that's potentially, you know, thousands of dollars. And, you know, that's not even to mention kind of the weather, you know, weather related things that it can cut down on. So we see it as, you know, probably a bit of a hedge against risk in the project. And as developers, that is, you know, that's good news to us. So, you know, even if it makes the construction a little bit less profitable for me, it's still worthwhile, you know, when I'm wearing my developer hat to say, okay, but I'm reducing risk here. So that's going to be good for the overall project.
Also, in terms of the passive house stuff, you know, to train somebody who's unfamiliar with how to seal, how, you know, how to get that air sealing right, how to install those windows right, how to do that interior air sealing, the insulation. There's a huge learning curve there. So if you're hiring an experienced team, that's really expensive. A team who's experienced in passive house building, or you're training somebody on site, which is there's a lot of risk there as well. So
yeah,
to
and
me,
then
that's a big part of it.
for sure. And then, you know, you get into these added layers of complexity with fire separation and, you know, sound isolation between units that you have in these multifamily buildings. And, you know, all of a sudden you can end up in like a sequencing nightmare where subs didn't really understand what they were buying out. And so we see, you know, promise in the ability to control that and work through kind of those sequencing concerns, you know, in the shop drawing process with a panelization vendor. But then to speak to like the project financing a little bit, you know, kind of Matt and Jen really carried the weight of like designing this project and you know, handling all of the architecture stuff. So my kind of front end contribution was really trying to put together the development pro forma and understand the financing component of it. And so the city, as part of the RFP, the city promised up to $150,000 per unit in subsidy for the Welcome Home Boston program. And so we really tailored our initial pro forma for the project around that, you know, coupled with what's the maximum, you know, potential sales price we can get for these restricted units. And there's all other kinds of limitations around soft costs that you have to factor in. But we're also, you know, so our initial submission just had, you know, our sales, our sellout plus the per unit subsidy from the city. And we were, you know, trying to make the deal pencil that way. You know, I think both because of increased soft costs as well as, probably more complicated than we initially desired, kind of site work and foundation cost and cost of the panelization. We're going to seek some additional subsidy through Mass Housing and their Commonwealth Builder Program. With that program, we can really go to them and, well, the project values and affordability already align and dovetail with their affordability guidelines. So the project is a good fit for them. Otherwise, they know, what subsidy dollars are coming from the city, and we can make an additional subsidy ask to them on top of that. So it'll end up being, a relatively modest subsidy ask on top of them, but for us, that really allows us to make sure this deal pencils and that we can maintain the quality of the project that we wanted to deliver. So yeah, I think there's promise there, and just having the conversations with the different lenders and getting in front of people and having conversations about what we're interested in, what we're interested in doing. It was really encouraging because, we realized that there are, potentially private deal opportunities, and there's, affordable deal opportunities where, our development firm can take advantage of, a little bit more advantageous, construction financing and acquisition financing than if we were just doing, market rate deals, or if we were not a WMBE business. So yeah, there's just some interesting stuff there, and kind of using the RFP process as an education of sorts in that that'll hopefully serve us down the line.
That's great. There are a handful of things you were alluding to and kind of connecting the dots on a couple of your piece of feedback here. It sounds like one of the real tools you're able to utilize to realize the cost is this design, build, and ownership process, right? Where often architects will be in the seat of exactly as you're describing, offering some sort of solution like panelization that could potentially improve that the site holding duration, the quality control, right, on site, that variability. You're saying that owners who are not connected in the full circle as your team is often have hard time kind of engaging in these technologies. I think is something we continue to see as a detriment to the ability to utilize that as a new methodology of delivering housing, more volume that we continuously are in need of in the city. So I would be interested I see David, you might have a question too, but Matt, you kind of alluded in that process of also the job training. And I think this is a really important piece of conversation in regard to passive house, because it is becoming now code path, right? This is going to be a necessity that all of our workforce becomes skilled in knowing how to execute this work, but they are not today. And we see a lot of difficulty with that. So you kind of combine that also with, it sounds like, your expressed desire to make sure you really are engaging with the neighborhood, and that you're hosting job fairs and really working very diligently to make sure that you have Boston residents and diverse workforce kind of coming to this. And so at this point, and I know this is not yet in construction, but in your experience, what's the best approach to that? Are you doing on-site training? Are you looking for already skilled crafts folks who can bring in subcontractors and train them up, or are you still feeling that out?
I mean, I think it's a lot of both. I think my personal hope with the panelization angle is that I can help train basically a carpentry crew to do the panel set. And, you know, what's been really encouraging is that all the panel vendors that we've talked to, you know, who are doing, these aren't just like, you know, studs and sheathing. These are, you know, insulated panels with service cavity and, you know, rain screen and, you know, the fancy European vapor open membranes. You know, they're like, we can produce these panels, but we can't install them fast enough. Like we need field crews who want to, you know, learn our system, learn how to set these. And, you know, that's like a way for them to increase their production capacity as well. So they've been super receptive to, you know, saying, we'll work with you for the on-site labor component. You know, we'll train your crew. We'll have, you know, 1 or 2 crew leads who knows the system in and out there for the set and, you know, running your local crew on site. So I do see there being some promise in the workforce development component of that as well. But yeah, I think a lot of it is kind of just trying to figure out where subs are at. And, you know, the biggest prerequisite is just like a willingness to engage on it and engage on it before you're on site, like needing to produce, because you can't just show up and be like, all right, I got to be in and out of here in a week. And what are we doing? Right? We've got to talk it through beforehand, because every time you have those conversations, there's so many questions that come up of like, okay, well, what if this? And okay, I think you're going to do this before that. And they're like, whoa, no, that's not how I want to do things. And it's like, okay, well, if you want to do things in that order, here are the other considerations. And you end up needing to loop in so many people that it's really just, if you're willing, you know, if I'm speaking to like subs or tradespeople, if you're willing to engage and like come and sit down, have some of those meetings, dig into the details, you know, we can talk you through that and get you up to speed, and, you know, help you troubleshoot on site, you know, when it comes to that. But yeah, it's just finding people who are willing to, you know, do what it takes.
Another, just to touch on that, is I don't know if in our team pictures, we've got a guy, Stafford, who's a member of the local Harvard Washington Norwell Association, which Jen and I attend regularly since our office is here. And he's a builder with Alpha Builders. He's been around forever, and he knows a lot of the subs and local people. So we've kind of, you know, he's just a friend, but we've said he's a team member because he's going to help, you know. It's in his interest and it's in our interest and it's in the neighborhood's interest to like really understand who's around and what their skills are and, you know, what their capacities are. So that's part of what we're doing too, is just tapping into some of those local contacts we have in the neighborhood. And that's another positive thing about us being local and knowing people around here, is because we do have those resources that are just built into our team. And so that's a big part of what we're doing as well.
I would say also that, you know, Stafford's also on the board of another local group called Action for Equity, and they are the recipient of another Mass Clean Energy Center grant for workforce training. And so, you know, we're starting to see more funds and resources and kind of weight thrown behind, you know, the workforce development component, but it's not enough. It's really not, and it's not happening fast enough. And so, you know, I really would hammer down on like that being, you know, a parallel crisis to the housing crisis, because we just can't get it. We can't get folks to where they need to be fast enough. So, you know, it's great that, you know, that those funds are starting to come through, but you know, we need more and faster, I would say.
On a separate financial related note, I noticed that your proposal includes combining 3 lots into 1 lot and creating a condo association for all 12 units. Could you talk about the both construction and financial benefits of that move? And any other additional benefits there might have been.
Specifically regarding combining 3 lots into one.
Yeah, and there's also probably social and community benefits to these shared spaces.
Oh, okay. So, so basically, actually, it's kind of just an administration move to combine them. They are going to be acting as one, the 3 buildings all together as one condo development with like shared spaces, but like technically those lots, they can keep separate if they want to, but we decided that actually combining them just administratively with ISD, they thought that makes more sense. ISD kind of is just easier for them and administrative.
Well, that had a building code strategy to it as well, because we were eliminating some of the needs for those exterior rated firewalls with the setback lines and stuff. So there was yeah, you have to be strategic with everything, because that saves us, it's going to save us thousands of dollars to not have to do exterior rated firewalls on 5 or 6 of our walls. So there's when you're in the development mindset, you always have to draw on all your knowledge from code to design to construction and try to incorporate all those things. So
yeah, and then I think but yes, in terms of efficiency, because they on that one lot, all of the open space, you share bike parking, car parking, and open green space. Because they're able to share it, we can actually offer a little bit more. So there's 12 units, 6 parking spaces, and 6 bicycle parking. And the idea was that the 6 parking spaces would be for the family size units, and then the 6 bicycle parking would be for the single bedroom units. And then, open green space, we're able to merge them so that they actually are larger on the site, and you can actually have more activities on it. We can hold more people, so like gatherings, parties, and whatnot. So that's kind of, we wanted to optimize that. If they were to share it, then it'd become bigger, and then more uses come out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think objectively, like looking at those 3 sites as one, there's definitely some other plays that like we could have made to like utilize the site differently, but I don't think that any of those other plays would have kind of fit in the cadence of the street as well. So it would have been a building that looked very out of place. And like, I think that kind of just boils down to what I think the sentiment of the RFP was, and what, the community had expressed throughout, which is like, we want housing that keeps the neighborhood feel, that isn't just like a drastic departure. And even though it's decidedly more dense than what could be built as of right on those lots, it doesn't necessarily feel a lot more dense. I don't think, at least. And I know that was that was intentional on Jen and Matt's part.
Yeah, and we could have a whole additional conversation about what as of right is doing to the city. So I think it's probably the better architectural move, an urban design move, frankly. I'm interested in you just mentioned that there's 6 bicycle parking, and it perked up my ears, right? Because we've been asked by City of Boston to do 1-to-1. So I'm curious in general how the design review and permitting process has been, if this RFP lent you any, let's say, gravitas to kind of get through some of that process, and if the city is actually making good on their a fast track for affordable housing, and with keeping in mind potential some city affiliated folks on the call. I'll just give you that warning in your answer, but I'd love to hear more about that process.
yeah,
I think that right now we are still waiting for the refusal letter. So the fast track is, the deadlines for the fast track is still there. So the zoning hearing is supposed to be going to be in April. At first it was supposed to be March, but we still haven't received the refusal letter. So, but it's meant to be fast tracked. So the community process, should have been already in there, because they have done that 1 or 2 years of community feedback. prior to starting this program. And so that's what, that's kind of a very short time. If you were to get a refusal and have a zoning hearing within 2 months, that's like, unheard of for other projects. So I would say like, yeah, if we really do meet that timeline, then yes, we're gonna be on our way, maybe to close on the project near the end of the year and start construction. But it's our first time doing this with MOH, so we don't know if there is like you said, a gravitas towards what we're doing.
I think MOH is doing, they're really trying hard to listen to, they're trying hard to facilitate the bureaucracy, but I think it's just, they're not magic makers. They can't, ISD is understaffed, and they have pulled a few strings for us, to get our address, our address forms in and stuff like that, but there's still some slowness to just the city mechanisms. So they can't snap their fingers and make it happen, but I think they are trying really hard to help us out.
Yeah, they are.
And I hope through the zoning process it stays the same. But we know the community, and we presented this project before. So I think from the work we've put in up front, I think hopefully that will make it smoother as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you've talked about, Stafford and his organization also participating, I think. Just hearing that, or if you were going somewhere else, Milo, please. But the concern we've been hearing, I would say even in the media, is that the fast track is being considered really the not circumnavigating, but a different type of community engagement, in that the engagement happened as a part of forming the RFP. And so then the individual project that is selected, presumably with an oversight committee, right? But that project then has a different, if not, abbreviated community engagement for the actual solution. And I think, your team might be, because you are so local and you are really engaged with the people on the ground and the neighborhood, that might be working all right in your example. And I'm curious if you've been hearing any feedback from neighbors to say that in a big picture, if that's a good or bad thing.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't think, I haven't heard of any particular feedback, but tonight we are like representing to the local civic. So we'll let you know how that goes. But I guess like to the, the process with the city, I think they didn't have enough time to like create a formal process, pull all of the, necessary departments into that and say, okay, here is the process for these, these projects, and here's who's going to be responsible for facilitating all the way through and like make it happen. So, in a lot of the meetings that we've been having, it's like, okay, we're working on it. Like we've kind of got everyone around, but it's more like, we've got a handshake on it, and, it's kind of TBD. But also, what they've really impressed on the Welcome Home Boston teams is like, please, get your stuff together, before submitting it, and like eliminate, some of the low hanging fruit feedback that like, are kind of easy catches that would be snags or gum up the process at all. And so like, we had to really modify our site plan so that we wouldn't get gummed up with BTD and like public works with our curb cuts and that kind of stuff, that like they're like, listen, we don't like, if they like have a problem, you're gonna get like bumped back to their queue, and like it's gonna slow down the process. So like play it safe, make these adjustments so that they don't raise that flag, and you can keep it moving through. So there's we look at it like, okay, well, we have to make some compromises, but I think the coaching overall has been from MOH has been well intended, and we know that they are working behind the scenes to kind of keep the other departments in line, and just to cap that, I would say not for our phase of Welcome Home Boston, but the successive phases of Welcome Home Boston, their viability is actually in jeopardy if they can't spend the ARPA dollars that the subsidy is based off of in time. So I think there's mutual incentive there, from all of the kind of heads in the city to keep the pressure on their departments to keep this moving so that that source of funding, that opportunity doesn't go away.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's an interesting, let's say, modification to that concept of, will the coaching concept that there are still rules we have to play within, and we're trying to help you see what those rules are a little bit more clearly. And that sounds, that it's about as aligned as it could be with the intention of bringing new development teams to the plate.
Absolutely. And there's definitely no written playbook. So you don't know until you've played the game.
Yeah, I think I was hoping it would be more like they would snap their fingers and just let us break a bunch of rules. So I'm like, why can't we do more curb cuts? We deserve it. But that was kind of a pipe dream. So yeah, stuff to follow the city rules, which obviously is understandable.
Our sloped third floor windows got nixed. Yeah, we were told we weren't allowed to have angle cuts on those. Yeah, the chamfer on those third floor windows weren't going to fly. So those are.
By whom?
Why?
What are you getting at?
I don't want to name names, but
No, like as a design, or are you saying like as a cost or the constructability of it, or
it was a
design?
It was a design influence that, they were just like, yeah, this just isn't going to pass muster.
Well, that's something interesting actually, because they had a good point. I think their point was don't do anything that's custom or unique, because then it's hard to replace if it gets broken. But then it goes back to, well, everything's trying to be passive house now, and passive house windows are custom no matter what.
Right.
And so, it's kind of this, the sustainability in the code is kind of catching up with this prior kind of rules of thumb from MOH. And so I think MOH probably is trying to figure out, adapting to those new codes and new rules as well. So that's why it's so interesting for this project, just because I think it's one of the first, I haven't done it in MOH, but for me, it's early in the code year where we have to do passive house now. I don't think those have been requirements before. So those strict requirements for energy and sustainability are meeting the affordability issues. And so it's really interesting to see how those things mix together for me. And I think this, the city organizations are learning from that as well.
Yeah, and in fairness too to MOH, like they clearly have been burned before by development teams or builders kind of trying out new things or doing details that are a little bit tricky and weren't well executed in the field, and then MOH is kind of stuck picking up the pieces after the fact when buyers are like, oh, I've got this building failure, or I've got this ridiculous maintenance item and I can't afford to now maintain my property. So yeah, we certainly understand where a lot of the concern comes from, and I think ultimately we've taken it, like we've made the concessions we need to make, and are just hoping that we can demonstrate that like we're a good partner and want to deliver a really good product at the end of the day, so that we don't end up on like the not to replicate list.
Yeah, and wouldn't it be nice if there were such a list of rules and guidelines that could assist future developers, so that didn't have to be a staff knowledge, institutional knowledge that we could all learn together. But I digress. That again is a fully additional topic that we would love to approach at the Housing Committee. So I'm taking a look at the time, and we're approaching 1. So I was gonna just kind of wrap us up here if there are no other questions from the audience. None. So thank you all for coming and sharing your project. I think this has been a really interesting discussion about what we hope will be the first 3 of several, you know, of these in the city. And we'd love to see models like this as they grow and hopefully can be reproduced, right? And ideally kind of bringing some of those really valuable high performance and significant large project bedroom count units to the market. I think that's really unique in this project. So thank you to Milo and Jennifer and Matt for
Thanks,
sharing
Sarah.
your time with us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you all. And to everyone remaining on the call, again, we'll do an in-person networking on March 26th. So that's Tuesday, last Tuesday in March. And we hope to actually get to meet some folks in person. So maybe our panel can join us then as well. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.